Good morning, guys, and welcome back. This is Pete Dahlgren. We're building the Mears Models F86. And anyway, as I showed in the last video, in a previous video, I had in mind the canopy latch. And I'm also going to show you guys a little bit about what I'm doing here for I'm getting back on the speed brakes. Because the size was not exactly what it was. So what I got here is a plastic model, and I'm going to make this as aesthetically pleasing as I can, and we got some reconfiguration, some rework to do in here, and it's not a big problem. A lot of guys noticed that they were very long, and I did this on purpose because I'm going to put a servo back here, and I'm actually going to channel this out in this area. And then I'm actually going to cut this out with a tube. And then I ordered some more G10 hinges and stuff like that I'm going to be using for this purpose. And I was kind of configuring quite a bit of stuff on here to make this work, because I want to keep weight down as much as possible. And these will actually work. And another thing is too, this is a 1/48 scale F86, and even though it's an F model and we're building the A model, certain parts and aspects are going to be the same, and the panel lines and differences are going to be pretty much the same of it. But as you can see with that line and the way this is actually going to curve in, those are the right length. Now what I did to do this, you've got to get a steel ruler, and you want to measure this out, and that is, we're going to say 16 millimeters. Now your formula to find out the length to scale this all out for this to 1/4 is you're going to go and you're going to take your formula, which is going to be 1/48, and then you're going to divide that number, or times it, excuse me. You're going to times it by 0.25, which is 1/4. So it comes up to 12. So for every millimeter that you do here, you're going to times what you would do to get these measurements. And this works real well for panel lines. You're going to go 12 by 16, which comes to 192 millimeters. So you're going to be about right here. And you just transfer that number to the actual part. And that will be the actual scale of this part, and that gives you roughly about, it gives you almost an inch, and you got 1 3/16 left over, and that is just enough room to be able to go through and put a servo back in here and hide it. Because what I'm going to do is I'll take a linkage. I have some somewhere around here, and now that I've cleaned the shop up, I don't know where I put anything. So anyway, we're going to be putting a couple ball links in here, and then we'll get some plastistrut tubing, and we'll make it look like a hydraulic ram, and it'll be hidden back here with a servo. And basically what it will do is that arm will push that out to about right there. And the one thing is just getting it pretty close to the size. Now if you look, they do drop. They don't drop as much as I would like to, but you know, they're not in the plan for, none of this is in the plan to put these in. And as far as I know, I'm the only one that's done it on a Mears F86 so far. But what I did on the back here is I wet formed that all in there, and I glued it in to keep the rigidity of the fuselage there, so it's not weak by any means. And then I'll simply just run a little bit of glue in here and glue that in and fill it. And yeah, it's some weight. It's not enough to worry about. And then I'm getting ready to do a few other little things here like that, cleaning that up, getting this edge ready to go. Got a little bit more sanding and some work to do there because I want this to disappear as much as possible. And in order to get that cut, you got to have your wings built and ready to go in there, because it's just that angle, you can't really guess on it. And so I'm going to spend the next couple days and get some things completed. But what I want to do is keep my lines as even as possible. This will push in a little bit more. I've got some sanding to do underneath it to get it cleaned up. And I kept a little bit of a gap in there because I'm going to wrap the edges with the 1 ounce cloth in this. And yes, I did correct the back end of this. It's very close. The only thing I didn't do, because the model I saw didn't have it. I saw an A model that I looked at, I took photos of it, and it had a really ugly, screwed up looking back end, but I thought it was cool, so I just duplicated that onto this. Other than that, this whole area here is all metal, and it's all shiny from up into here and there. Now what I did under here, guys, I just filled this, I got to sand it out, and I beefed this up a little bit. Now it's a little ugly right now because it has not been sanded out. But what I'm doing here is I'm getting this all done because I want this to stay as strong as possible. And this is why I do all my filling first, because if I sanded that and kept going, it'd be just a nightmare. So anyway, I'm finishing this up. I'm going to sand this out today and then come back. I'm going to get these cut and put in. That tape is just there because it's there, and I had needed a place to stick it, I guess. But anyway, as it is, I want to show you the iFlight Achilles latch that I did install yesterday, and I've got a lot of work going on here. Now this is the latching system that I'm using, and it's just when it's done, there is a cord that comes out here. It's just a nylon cord, and you got to determine where you want to install it. But when you pull this, that is the latch, and when it does this, it opens that up, and this is there, and this is my latch. And it does need a little bit of shimming in here, and this has got to be done, but you need to have it in there and done before you do your final blending work in here, just because you want it to fit tight. And right now it's got just a little bit of slop in it, but that's okay. I will fix it. There is a way to adjust it, and it goes, but there's no chance of that ever blowing off, and it's stuck in there. It's got a metal rod. I need to bend those over, and then I'll put more epoxy on there. And then, like I said, this piece right here is temporary. It's not where it needs to be. I've got a lot of revamping to do, because with the fiberglass canopy, I can reuse a lot of this, but I'm going to have a lot of work to do on that, and I want this to open and close. So the base is all glassed out, and it looks good. But now I'm going to start doing some detail sanding and working of this and getting everything kind of filled to where all these lines kind of don't look so obvious. And this is where things are starting to get real on this, and it's just a lot of work. A lot of guys would not do the canopy the way I would do this, but then again, this is going on what you need to do. Now this needs to be glassed, but that also needs to be adjusted in there to where this sits and it goes smoothly, because I did underneath here, I did glass this, and it's got to be sanded out, a little bit dripped in there, and it's okay. But what you want to do is come in if you'd see that. And be damn careful when you're glassing this stuff, guys. This stuff will cut the crap out of you. Once that's done, then all this hard wood that I used on here and the glassing parts in here will be good. And I've had a lot of guys, yes, I totally 100% agree with Chris on this and a lot of things. A lot of these pieces should be made with plywood. And the only reason I didn't is because I was experimenting with this when I did it. But I think when I glass both sides of it, it'll become more than rigid enough, and it doesn't weigh anything, really. This was an afterthought. That needs to come off. This needs to be done. And then all this will get glassed and actually be pretty much one unit. And then I'll come back on this, and then that will all get painted black in there. And then what we'll do is we're going to take and we're going to cut the top pieces out of there, and when I do this, I'll clamp it down and I'll epoxy it on, then I'll go simply fill it. This goes. Now I want to show you a little bit on that, because, and this is why it's real important that some of the videos you watch a couple times, because this was a nightmare for me right here, and it would have been a lot easier. Don't start your sheeting in the dead center, because what happens is it actually throws this whole thing out of whack. And you want to plank this. Don't use I planked it, but go to this side, then this side, and give this thing a little bit, and then you can plank your sides. Because otherwise, you're going to be bondoing the hell out of that. And that's just what I did. I would have bondoed it anyway, because number one, this area here, when you look in here, you can't hardly see a lot of these seams. And once you glass it and all that, you're going to be reassured in the fact that this thing is hard as nails. But you want this area to remain strong, because that's where your landing gear is coming up, and you don't want to over sand the bottoms of your fuselage or the tops. And another thing, make sure that you do start on this. If you're doing the two-piece, this is what I should say. I went from the center and all the way down, but I used 1-inch strips on a lot of this, and then it come out. Now I want to bring up one thing that I did find out, and this is why I'm glassing now, is because of the fact is, the shop is my storage in the bottom of our condo here, and without any heat in here over the winter, we got real cold and we got real damp. Seattle, Washington's famous for its rain, and one of the biggest things that happened here, and this is why we glass our airplanes, just so you know, is because this will dry out, and what happens is this starts to split, and that's what this did, and that was tight. So when I glass it, this will swell up, but that epoxy will get in there and it'll actually tighten it back up. And so it's one of these deals where you got to kind of really think. If you got a heat source, which I have one, I just didn't think it was that big of a deal. And boy, I made a big mistake by not keeping it on. And that's a very big gamble, considering how much money we get tied up in these jets. So my airplane is not screwed up, but what it is going to take a little bit of finagling to get everything back in order. And once I get it glassed, it'll be fine, and then we can just carry on. So anyway, this is how I am getting all of my measurements, and as you can see, there are panel lines in here, and these binoculars that we do have in there will actually give you a very good idea of where you need to be. And I probably will build this, but those are the lines we want to be keeping, and there's little details and things like that in here that you'll be able to see. But when we get ready to start doing some scale details, you're going to be able to measure out like these vents and little things that are in here that are, you're going to be able to do this. And a lot of guys, I have not shown a lot of people a lot of how I do a lot of these, but then again, this video series is starting to actually become quite the deal. And one of the things is I've got 48 subscribers. I wanted to do a lot more live videos on this for you guys, but the problem with that is YouTube kind of shut that down. So I can't really do live feeds like I was doing. Won't compromise it won't do anything or compromise any of the other stuff that's going on. But, you know, I did that for questions and answers. And there are some really good builders watching this, and believe me, they call me on my errors and my ways, and I appreciate that in so many ways. And so, I mean, Chris has been, there's a lot of things out there. Chris, you've been great. Carton has been an amazingly big help lately, and so are a lot of the rest of you. But I've got a lot of people know I want to get this ready for Top Gun, and I'm not going to skimp on a lot of the little things. I've got a hell of a lot of body work to do on this. Even though that's glass and it looks good, I assure you, the beatings have just begun. There's a lot of filling, a lot of work going to go in that. There's tons going, but you'll see a lot of the errors in my ways, and I do follow advice, a lot of it. And so my thing is I'm a little more fussy on little things that I do, but I'm not so much on the things I really should be. And it's not about amateur. I've been building for over 40 years. So the one thing is, this is in fact my very first jet. And I am brand spanking new to the electronics in this thing and everything else. So I'm watching YouTube videos as well. And I ask a lot of people like Bob Moore for advice. Peter Goldsmith, I'll ask him if he's available. And I ask a lot of questions. Propeller driven airplane, bring it on. Jets, I don't have a freaking clue what I'm doing when I set up a jet in this yet. This is the first time, even though it is. And a lot of guys have been asking me about my radio gear and what I use. And it's simple. I mean, forgive the mess. This is my radio gear. And it's just simply a DX18. And the reason I like this so much is because of the fact that it's very easy to program and I can put anything in it. It's more radio than I will ever need. And especially for these, because it is what it is. But anyway, this is what I use. And I've got a brand new receiver set up, and I've got to do some reading on it. This is the Power Safe model that I will be using, and dual batteries. I've got all the rest of the stuff, and it's got 3 satellites, and to me it doesn't weigh enough to worry about. And just, you know, I've got to do a lot of reading up on it. Peter Goldsmith's been using them. I saw the demonstrations on all these things with it. It seems very, 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 very impressive to me. So I've got a lot of things to do here. I'm going to get hot. I'm going to get this fixed today and get those glued in and get them capped off and re-glued. And I'm going to start getting a lot of other things done here. You got a crap load of sanding, a lot of priming. I'm still waiting on the 2K primer to get here. But I do want to bring up a deal that a lot of guys are very, 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 a lot of guys are stuck on the duplicolor, and I have no reservations with it whatsoever. It's a good paint. It's not a lacquer. So as long as you're using this, I would recommend a sealer over the top of that once you're done. And it's just one of those deals where we need to kind of be looking at the quality of the work you're doing. But really, I use Class Coat paint because it's just foolproof. It's done. Once you put it on, you don't need any clear coats. The stuff's tough as nails. It's beautiful. You get the satin. You don't need a bunch of extra stuff. And it just does work out well. And I am not going to do this silver. I am doing a camo on it. So a lot of the things I am kind of building in, it's a war machine, guys. It's not going to look like a new airplane. It's going to look beat up and look used. I mean, there'll be some stuff in this that's going to be kind of fun to look at. But anyway, until the next time, guys, I'm trying to give out the best of the information that I possibly can. And I just want to give major shout outs to all of you guys. Thank you so much. And again, push the word out that, I'm needing some, I may be needing some guys out there for certain things. And if you guys have advice on setting up the power safe and the turbine, then that's really good. There's a couple guys around here that do fly turbines, but I'm going to probably wind up having a guy come out and actually helping me set this up and getting everything done. So anyway, I will see you guys in the funny papers. Next time we're going to show some cool stuff.